Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. I'm Meryl Fury.
And I'm Carrie Bruno. We are healthcare professionals and co-creators of this podcast. This episode is brought to you by the whole grain millet. In today's episode, we have the honor of talking with Deepa Deshmukh. Deepa has a unique background that includes training in food science and nutrition. She is one of only a handful of dietitians nationwide who are board certified in advanced diabetes management. She is also a certified diabetes educator and holds a certificate in adult weight management. In 2020, Deepa was recognized as a top 10 dietitian in the country by Today's Dietitian publication for her innovative approach to health and wellness. In addition to working in a private practice, she has been working as a public health dietitian, serving the underserved population in Aurora, Illinois, and helping them manage their chronic conditions using a food as medicine approach. Also, she has been actively working with schools to improve the quality of meals and promote nutrition education. Deepa brings a unique perspective to today's conversation. We discuss everything from her childhood, growing up in India, and how that influenced her path to becoming a dietitian, to her work now as a public health dietitian, serving the underserved, and how it all relates back to child nutrition. We hope this conversation illustrates the importance of childhood nutrition and is as interesting and eye-opening for you as it was for us.
Let us welcome now Deepa Deshmukh, my very good friend.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you, Deepa. All the time. Every time we're together, I just have such a great time.
That is true. And thank you as well, Carrie.
Welcome.
I have always enjoyed our cook-alongs with Meryl, and it's so much fun. And I'm so excited about your podcast series, 6 Million Seeds, and it's so needed. I'm very confident that you guys bring a lot of good information to those who are in need to hear this message. So thank you for starting this initiative and having me as a guest.
Yes, well, our pleasure, and thank you for accepting our invitation, right? Because you're the one delivering the information tonight. So let's get started. This is so exciting. So first question, and let me tell you, Carrie, don't let me dominate this conversation, okay? I need to be held back sometimes. So first question is, you are originally from India, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So how did you grow up eating?
Okay.
What was your diet like when you were a kid?
So I grew up in western part of India, closer to Mumbai or Bombay, in the state called Maharashtra and town called Pune. So, growing up, I grew up in a joint family where I grew up with my grandparents and four uncles and my parents and cousins. And it was, if you think about joint family unit, it's like a mini restaurant, because at any given time, there are 15 to 20 people eating and everything was made from scratch. And at that time, my task used to be to take all the whole grains and take it to the closest grinding facility, the grain grinding mill, they call it, and bring it back. So that's how fresh the food was. We would get the freshly ground flour every 4 days. Now, growing up, I had very interesting set of grandparents. One of my grandmother, my father's mom, was a type of cook or a chef, you can call it, or housewife, you can say, who would cook with minimum ingredients, without much oil, and without much, I should say, not too many fancy ingredients, and very quick. She's the one who turned 101 last month.
Oh,
okay. Exactly. And then my other grandmother, my mom's mother, she was more of a gourmet cook. She had access to more luxurious ingredients for that time. She had cocoa powder. She had access to espresso coffee and, beautiful china and all that stuff. So one household with very, small quantities and little bit of scarcity, and other household with everything in plenty. And and my mother herself always paid attention to our nutrition. She was making kombucha and fermented vegetables and sprouts, and she was mixing soy flour with regular flour when we grew up.
Wow.
And I know that was very interesting. And she would always cut articles from the magazines, and and have us read about health and wellness. And she was a physical therapist assistant. So there was that awareness about health and wellness around me, which is, I don't know if it's typical of Indian households, but when I grew up, it was quite typical among other friends of mine, and so on and so forth. So I grew up on vegetarian diet predominantly, so there was eggs were never cooked at home, but dairy was at home. And that's how I grew up. And then I came, and then I knew that I wanted to do something with food, and I decided to pursue my career in food science and nutrition. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how my household, the kind of household I grew up in, was a lot of cooking, lot of different kinds of cuisines and stuff like that. And not to mention, my dad used to get transferred every 2 years to different states within India. And that exposed me to different cuisines. And because India is a very diverse country, every state has very unique cuisine. Everything changes, the language changes, the way you dress changes, and the food habits change. So every time we went, you are exposed to different set of vegetables, different set of spice blends, different set of grains. Like southern part of India they do not eat wheat. It's all technically can be gluten free. It's all rice and millets. Northern part of India is all wheat. Then you have southern near coastal, where we use a lot of coconut.
Right.
So very distinct, unique exposure to different ingredients and cuisines. And that kind of, over the years, obviously, I feel that has exposed me to be creative with recipes and ingredients, and make me comfortable in the kitchen.
Wow.
So would you say your background in growing up led you, or was part of the reason why you became a dietitian?
To tell you the truth, I was not thinking that far. What I wanted to do. When at that time, there were only two career options. Okay. Either if you are growing up in India, either you become an engineer or a doctor. That's it.
Right. I've heard that before. Yes.
Right. So this third little unique career path that time was offered was called home science. Okay. And it was all girls college, and the expectations was that, hey, you go there, you learn about the home economics and all that stuff, and one day you will make a good housewife, and off you go. Okay. I had never heard the word dietitian, diabetes educator. I had no idea. All I did was, it was very hard. I mean, the curriculum was hard, and it was a very holistic education, I must say, because the food science obviously was my most favorite, but there was a lot of emphasis on child nutrition and maternal wellness. So I think that's basically it triggered something in me to stay in that field, because after I migrated to US in 1993, I decided to pursue the same line of work, even as a volunteer. I volunteered at a hospital for 4 to 5 years because I was not allowed to work on my visa, and my husband was a student, so on and so forth.
So you said that you studied a fair amount about child nutrition. That was while you were in India still?
That is correct.
Uh-huh. So just because I love to know about the difference in cultures, you know. So what did you learn about child nutrition in India that would be really different from what you might be told here in the States?
Oh boy, Meryl, you just open up a can of worms here, because
That's what I do.
because in India, there is traditionally, I'm talking about through Ayurveda and just the traditions, you know, the food traditions, what we call,
Yes.
the kind of food that they expect a pregnant woman to eat, even before they get pregnant. So let's say, you know, you get married and, you know, go through the normal cycle of your normal life cycle. And so they expect you to eat certain kind of foods before getting pregnant. During pregnancy, there are first 2 trimester, there is a specific foods, nutrient dense foods that they expect you to eat. And at least 20 days are spent before the arrival of the baby to prepare certain kinds of foods for the mom to eat postpartum during breastfeeding. So it's a completely different protocol, so to speak, about nutrition and wellness. And it's not only food. There's a massage therapist who comes after a baby is delivered for 3 months. Every day, baby and the mom gets massage, and mom has basically she goes to her mother's house and gets time to rest, and that's how they recover from the pregnancy and delivery. And India has a pretty low maternal mortality rate. The sad thing is United States is number 4 when it comes to maternal mortality.
Wow.
So there's definitely something has to happen here. And because I studied all these things, it's so ingrained in my brain that nutrition at every stage of women's life is so important. And that concept of specific foods for maternal health doesn't exist in United States.
Right, right.
What are some of the specifics, depending on which stage they're in?
So I will give you an example. Let's say third trimester. Okay, that's when, you know, baby is growing at a very high rate. So they expect you to eat very small quantities of some nutrient dense foods, such as a mix that is made with poppy seeds and coconut. Okay, and it has cardamom and saffron. Then after the delivery, they make sure that your diet contains a lot of porridges. The breakfast, the first meal of the day is a very nice porridge with all whole grains or a millet or which is again mixed with some coconut and some seeds and cardamom and saffron. Then in mid-afternoon, you get a little treat again with dates, and it's a type of it's not a chemical really. It's a sap from the tree.
Okay.
And it's called guar, which is a binder. Okay, but now when I look at the composition of guar, it's nothing but prebiotic. Okay. So they mix that with date, and again with little bit of nutmeg, because they believe that nutmeg is the one which is going to make baby calm down a bit. It has a bit of a calming effect on the mother and the baby. So a lot of this preparation contain saffron, cardamom, nutmeg, not spicy food. The diet is not very heavy in chilies and garlic, so on and so forth. Then they mix ginger with jaggery, which is like, untreated, or jaggery would be what?
Like date
raw
sugar,
sugar.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Date
like cane sugar, but it's very, very raw. It's not as treated with chemicals. So they mix a little bit of jaggery with that, and in the morning or sometime during the day, you are supposed to eat like 1/4 teaspoon of that for if you have a headache or if you have a body ache, things like that. And every night, the mom is given a big bowl of green vegetables along with a millet roti, millet bread,
Right.
which is of course is homemade, along with dal, 1 or 2 kinds of dals which are been sprouted, and those kind of that kind of food.
Wow.
Mother is not allowed to eat anything from outside.
Okay.
There's no outside food allowed in that maternal room, they call it.
Wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah.
What a difference would that make here if we had some sort of a prescribed, culturally held, valued, and respected diet for women, even preconceptionally. I was talking to a lady the other day. She's a nurse practitioner. She'll be coming on the podcast sometime down the road. And she was telling me that the preconceptual health of the mom has an impact on the next 2 generations.
Correct.
So like, how powerful would it be if women actually took care of each other that way, that the mom knew to tell her daughter or the grandma knew to tell the granddaughter, you need to be eating these nutrient dense foods. This is why we do it. It'll keep your baby calm. It'll help the pregnancy go better, or whatever the connection.
That's true. And that is true for a lot of Asian cultures, right? Or African cultures. Japanese I have studied traditional maternal diets for quite a few ethnicities and cultures. I mean, Egyptians have it, Japanese have it, Chinese have it, Africans, they have it. So it's very common. In the United States, the problem is, number 1 is knowledge, and second is access to this knowledge, and then the third is food, because this requires, it really takes a village to feed that woman and a baby.
Right.
So we need a lot of community support.
Right. What do they say for the woman before she gets pregnant? What are the prescriptions?
The prescription before getting pregnant would be a lot of greens, because of, I think, folic acid. That's all I can think of, now if I have to dissect it using science. And then no meat, not too much meat is promoted. And a lot of stress management, through deep breathing. And of course, in India, at least when I was growing up, obesity wasn't a problem. Okay. I went to all girls school, and you would think that, girls talk, we all talk, and there were no boys. So there was no really inhibition in terms of any topic. Nothing was off table. And it's a very, at that time, it was a very traditional society. But I had never heard of endometriosis, polycystic ovary, any of that stuff. You would think that in a class of 150, we had big classes and we all were good friends with each other. But you would hear somebody say, hey, I got diagnosed with PCOS, because here, day in and day out, I have young girls and obviously women in their early 20s, endometriosis, polycystic. So there is something about the diet which was playing a role. And traditional diets are not high in meat or eggs, even to some extent dairy in India. Even dairy was very limited, So a lot of greens, tropical fruits, very simple, unprocessed diet. That's what they recommend.
Okay.
So you mentioned growing up that you were mostly vegetarian, but you did have some of the dairy. So what turned the tide and kind of made you go all in and whole food plant-based?
So what happened after I graduated with a lot of schooling and got my all credentials and this and that, and actually started practicing in 2006, I decided to, there was something about the traditional setup, medical system setup that did not gel with me very well. I worked in the hospital for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, and immediately realized that inpatient was not my thing. I could not, nutrition education is what I liked. And so I worked inpatient for not even 6 months, probably 4 weeks. And then they, because I was complaining, they transferred me to diabetes center. And I got exposed to outpatient setup, nutrition. I got some chance to do nutrition education, but even then I felt I couldn't really drive my protocol. So I decided to open my private practice. And when I had chance to talk to patients one-on-one and kind of go through their symptoms, pretty much everybody at the end of everything would say, oh, I'm very tired. Okay, regardless of the diagnosis. Whether I was seeing them for cardiovascular, cancer, diabetes, or weight issues, hypertension, they would, one common symptom was, very fatigued and low energy, and of course, pain. So what had happened is, in India, because it's a developing country, the nutrition curriculum is about treating deficiencies, because we see very malnourished people. So looking at the patient and identifying the deficiencies was the only screening tool that was taught to us. That, you look at them and you see, hey, does he have scurvy, or, based on the presentation of their hands and feet and so on and so forth. And when I started kind of observing these people and listening, I was listening that they are tired, there's pain, they don't go to the bathroom often, constipation was a big deal. That I was listening. But then when I started, almost like X-ray, like scanning, I started seeing the same symptoms of nutritional deficiencies that I had seen growing up with the malnourished population. And I said, oh my God, there's so much food here. India is developing country, not much access to food, and here so much access to food, but still the same symptoms, similar complaints in terms of, the presentation of the scurvy and everything. Then I said, well, scurvy was nothing more than arthritis. That's it appears like that. It's vitamin D3. I gave my patients D3 and C, and suddenly arthritis was better. So I started focusing on gut health and the whole thing about probiotic. I learned about gluten-free, and an Indian diet and gluten-free goes hand in hand so well. So many recipes, so many gluten-free grains. So it's one thing led to the other. Focusing on gut health. At 2007, nobody was practicing gut health or focusing on whole food plant-based diets. I didn't even know that there was a term for it. I would just tell people how to cook using real ingredients, herbs, spices. I didn't know what diet protocol it was. And then it was not until 2014 or so, I would say I realized that, there's no need for dairy and so on and so forth as I got more and more educated.
So tell me about what would you do with somebody, like what kind of foods would you recommend for somebody who's got cholesterol issues, or what would be a dietary path you would recommend for them?
Am I allowed to use F word?
Sure.
All right. So for cholesterol, two F words.
Okay.
One is high in fiber and 0 in fat.
Okay.
Fat and fiber are my two favorite F words for these people. Look for something with no added fat and you increase your fiber to 50 grams, 60 grams, 70 grams, and then eventually the cholesterol will come down.
Okay.
And of course, correcting some underlying deficiencies. Sometimes vitamin D3 deficiency affects the metabolism of cholesterol, and little bit of genetic history. But even then, as far as lifestyle is concerned, some vitamins, basic vitamins like D3 and these 2Fs.
Okay, that works. Okay, so I think almost everybody is addicted to sugar.
Correct.
What do you see of that in your practice? Do you see a lot of sugar addiction, and how do you coach people around sugar? Because that seems like a tough nut to crack.
That is, yes. Again, it goes into a little bit of education. I talk to my patients about gut health. I tell them why they have craving for sugar. That is because they have bad bacteria, and bacteria like sugar, so their system is asking for sugar. And I tell them, as you start starving these bad bacteria of food that they like, they are going to die, and then your craving is going to get better. So what I tell them in terms of medical nutrition therapy, the therapy part of it is I tell them, start eating these things. Okay. Forget about what you should not be eating. Start eating these things, and the desire to eat sugar automatically starts to die out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Instead of sitting here and crossing things off, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat this, you can't, then they go home with that no message. They feel, oh my God, I can't eat. So I tell them, okay, what you eat is just water under the bridge now. Let's focus on all these different foods that you can eat.
Nice.
Start eating these, and rest is history.
And you have to fight off these cravings for this stuff. They have to totally relearn. Okay, let's say for my husband, wound up getting a not very nice diagnosis from a cardiologist.
Yes.
To say, you need to change your diet. It has been now a year and a half, and I still struggle. It is just a challenge. He has very narrow palate still. There's certain textures that are not okay. You can't have salt, you can't have a smooth and a crunchy together. You can't, all kinds of limits he puts on the way he eats.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I mean, I'm pretty persistent. I'm pretty bullheaded about it. So, okay, this is what you get. But there's a lot of it he just pushes back. And the only way that we've been able to make a difference, and he does now have a good cardiac picture, right? Mm-hmm. But the only way has been through a lot of tearing of hair and upset and gritting of teeth, and me just having to stay calm because, my goodness. There was a time, literally, Deepa, when I first met him, if I put 4 green beans on his plate, it was an argument. Yes. The only thing he drank was Dr. Pepper and coffee. Period.
Wow.
Yeah. And
and you can imagine you being so educated, you being there to cook. This is a hard battle. So for our people, and I again go back to my underserved population, because that's where I see this as a public health issue, right? Look at them. They have no knowledge. They have no access. They have no support. Nobody around them is eating plant-based. Forget about whole food plant-based. Nobody's even eating less meat type of diet. Mm-hmm. So again, it's awareness, making people aware. And giving them a tool, a very tactical tool. I tell mothers who come to me, see, they come with 4-year-old, 5-year-olds, anywhere, young kids, right? Now these children have fatty liver, right? Mm-hmm. We are seeing patients with high triglycerides and cholesterol and blood pressure, of course, anxiety, depression. So I said to them, and then mom and dad will sit there and they are arguing as to, oh, he likes to eat McDonald's and he likes to drink soda and he is eating Takis. Takis is like a Mexican chips, right? Those Mexican chips, all that stuff. And I asked them, is he working? Is he driving? Does he have a credit card?
Who's buying the groceries?
Then they start to fight.
Yes.
Okay, because we are not realizing that when doctor is diagnosing that child as obese, that child's self-esteem is getting crushed right there. Okay. And these small kids sometimes tell me, oh, I want to feel better, because in conversation I will ask them, hey, how can I help you? And they say, I want to be on a diet. A 5-year-old, 7-year-old using the word diet is not a good thing. Okay, but he's confused, and it almost feel he or she almost feel that they are it's their fault, but it's not their fault. It is, as a society, we have failed.
True. So
As a
true.
society, we have failed. So again, it goes back to the target market that you guys are trying to educate is parents. And we need to create this micro environment where people feel supported, with their change. They need somebody, they need a list, they need a sounding board.
Yeah, for sure.
So if there's one main thing you could tell educators and parents about children's health, what would that be?
One thing, that's hard.
Right.
One thing is,
21 things.
no, I think one thing would be educate yourself, because education is empowering. Before I make a change, I need to know why I need to change and how I'm going to change. So that's that education part. I many times I talk to, it's like more of a, like conversation, it's teaching, right? I'm talking to patients. At the end of the session, I don't even have to convince them. I hardly ever convince anybody to change. You can't convince anybody to change. That's too much work for me, and I'm not in the business of convincing somebody. I'm your supporter. My goal is I'm a messenger. So I think we, instead of focusing on, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, I would say these are the reasons. This is where we are at. This is a state of union. Think about it. Awareness, mindfulness. Because without mindfulness, without awareness, we are like zombies. So I would ask educators, social workers, whoever, parents, be mindful, look around what's happening.
Yeah.
And then as you start observing things, we are here to help you.
Very powerful.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful message. So if people wanted to find you,
Yes.
where would they locate you?
So they should Google Nutritionist Deepa.
Okay.
And reach out to me either by Googling that or by my private practice name is DuPage Dietitians, if they're looking for one-on-one consult. But I also have a lot of meal plans and recipe packages, like digital products. We talked about maternal health, right? I have entire module, a protocol on women who are pregnant, and it's pregnancy and beyond, basically, where specific recipes, specific meal plan, so they can look at all that stuff that I have, or they can listen to my podcast, Ask Nutritionist Deepa. They can send me their questions. All the time. The topic of my podcast is the question that my patient has asked me.
Okay.
So that's the theme. They can find me on YouTube, and currently I'm working on an app which is a nutrition education support and accountability app, which is going to, of course, all about nutrition education support and accountability. So, to
Well, we will
help you
definitely-
make behavior change.
Okay, well, we will definitely put your all your social media in the show notes. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to see those, when people want to find you, they know where to
No
go and find
problem.
you.
Yeah.
If there was one thing, I think maybe we asked this already. Yeah, if there was one thing you could tell people right now that they could do
We can do,
today
Yeah.
to make a difference, what would you tell them?
Eat 1 cup of vegetable.
Very simple and easy.
That's right. Good start.
Just eat 1 cup of vegetable. I mean, that's easy.
Right, right.
Anyway, okay. So thank you for having me. I wish you all the best. Reach out to me if you have any questions, your audience have any question, you guys need any help.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much,
thank you very
Deepa.
much.
This
This
has
was
been
amazing.
yeah, totally wonderful conversation, which I knew would happen because that's how we do it.
That is true. That is true. And congratulations on your graduation tonight.
Well, thank you. Yeah, yeah, it's quite an organization, PCRM. It's a opening some other doors, which is great. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
6 Million Seeds is made possible by the generosity of Bruno Chiropractic, Acme Construction Metals, EXP Realty, and Deck It Out Builders. We thank you for your support.